Welcome to another episode of the ESL Teacher Can podcast. In today's advanced class, we will see the difference between if and unless. Thank you so much for being here. We will be going to page 252 of our English sentence structure book. If you are using the PDF that is available in my podcast for free, you can go to page 265. And as we mentioned earlier, we will be talking about the difference between if and unless. The major difference is going to be, let's say, being quite opposites, meaning that unless usually means if not. Now, I know that it's not so easy to absorb without a little practice. So first, we're going to go ahead and read these two ideas inside, and I will go ahead and give you guys some time to repeat after me. Let's do this. It says, John will stay home if the weather isn't nice. John will stay home unless the weather is nice. So, what are we trying to say in these two sentences? In this case, the if is saying in the case that. Okay, so John will stay home in the case that the weather isn't nice. And then unless means the opposite, except if. Okay, so John will stay home except if the weather is nice. And because I know that the best way to internalize this knowledge is by practice, let's go to the exercise that is right below that box in the book. We will take care of exercise 1. We are going to see if it's using unless or if, and we're going to change it to the opposite in the next statement. Very important that we are not only going to change the if or the unless, but we are also going to change the second idea from positive to negative and vice versa. Okay? Let's look at the examples. The first one says, John will buy a new bicycle unless he can fix his old one today. So right here again, if we say unless as in except if, you would say John will buy a new bicycle except if he can fix his old one today. For the sake of the exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to change the unless for an if. And we're going to change can, which is affirmative, for can't. Let's give it a shot. It would say, John will buy a new bicycle if he can't fix his old one today. Again, changing if for in the case that. John will buy a new bicycle in the case that he can't fix his old one today. Let's read the second example, and it says, John usually goes to the movies on Friday if he doesn't have to study. Again, if for unless, doesn't have for has. John usually goes to the movies on Friday unless he has to study. Let's go ahead with number 1. I will say the sentence and give you a moment to give me the correct change, and then I will repeat the change so that you can repeat after me and make any corrections necessary. So, number 1. John might go to New York unless it costs too much. John might go to New York if it doesn't cost too much. Repeat. Number 2. Paul will never know where you live if you don't tell him. Paul will never know where you live unless you tell him. Repeat. Number 3 says, I am going to Florida unless I get a good job here. What would you say? I am going to Florida if I don't get a good job here. Repeat. Four. I can't buy any new shoes if you don't give me any money. I can't buy any new shoes unless you give me some money. Repeat. Joe will take the bus unless he has a date. What would you say? Joe will take the bus if he doesn't have a date. Repeat. And number 6. I can't work these algebra problems if you don't help me. What will you say? I can't work these algebra problems unless you help me. Now, for the second part of this exercise, we're going to change the first clause or the first idea instead of changing the second one from affirmative to negative. We continue switching if for unless and vice versa. Number 7 says, John will go swimming if the sun comes out. So in this case, the example is saying, John won't go swimming unless the sun comes out. So again, we are going to change the first clause or the first part and not the second one. Number 8 says, John will call Mary if he has time. What would you say? John won't call Mary unless he has time. Repeat. Number 9. He won't study unless he has to. What will you say? He will study if he has to. Repeat. Number 10 says, I like to go swimming if the water is warm enough. What will you say? I don't like to go swimming unless the water is warm enough. Repeat. "11. I can't work these algebra problems unless you help me." What would you say? I can work these algebra problems if you help me. Repeat. And number 12. I'll go to the movies if I finish my homework. What would you say? I won't go to the movies unless I finish my homework. Repeat. And in case you would like to have more practice, you can go to the English Sentence Practices book on page 312. There you will have written practice with if and unless in exercises 1 and 2. And that is everything for today's class. Thank you very much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. And remember that English is easy. You just need to practice. See you next class.